Hey YouTube, welcome back to Intuition. In today's video, I want to give you guys some study tips and to tell you how I aced the PCAT. So for those of you who have not watched my 5 things to consider before applying to pharmacy school video, or for those of you who have watched the video and have still decided that you want to hack it through the saturated market and still go ahead and apply to pharmacy school, today I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to ace the PCAT. So I took the PCAT about 5 years ago and I did pretty well on it. In fact, I thought about whether or not I should show you guys my score, and I've decided to, just for the sake of authenticity. So this is not to brag, this is just to show you guys that it's not hard to ace this exam because I'm not special. To get the score on this exam, I studied for a good month and I did some real studying, and that's how I was able to get a good score. So here is study tip number 1. Study tip number 1 is to develop a realistic study plan. Everybody has different situations. Different people have more time than others. Maybe you're working multiple jobs and you don't have time to study. You're going to have to develop a study plan around your situation, and it's different for everybody. But you definitely want to make sure that you develop a realistic study plan. Ask yourself, how much time do I need to study to be able to get a good score? And that's going to vary person to person. In order to figure that out, you want to consider your academic background. Do you have a lot of prior education? Did you do well in those courses? Did you internalize those concepts, or did you just kind of memorize your way through those courses? You want to be realistic about what you currently know. If you don't know a lot, then you want to make sure that you allocate a good amount of time for you to study and for you to be able to achieve a good score. And another thing is that this exam is not free. It costs money. So don't waste your money taking an exam when you're not ready for it. Okay, study tip number 2 is when you study, you want to focus on your weakness. So for most people, we enjoy doing things that we're already good at, but you want to get out of that mindset. You want to become a person who challenges themselves to learn new things. There are different sections to this exam. There's reading, comprehension, there's verbal skills, there's quantitative ability, right? There's chemistry and biology. So you want to ask yourself, what am I good at? You want to know what type of person you are. You want to know where you're good, where you're weak. And focusing on your weak areas does not mean that you neglect your strength, okay? So just because maybe you're good at math doesn't mean that you don't brush up on your math skills here and there, and make sure that you still have those skills intact when you take the exam. Focusing on your weak areas just means that you spend a little bit more time working on those areas that you're not good at. For me, when I took this exam, as you guys can see from my score, my weakest area was biology. And I knew that before I even took the exam. Before I even started studying, I knew biology would be my weak area because biology is more memorization and I'm more of a math type person. And not only that, I had only taken a few biology classes before taking this exam. So I had a lot of material. I had a lot of biology material that I needed to catch up on. So when I studied for this test, guess which subject I focused on the most? Biology. It still ended up being my lowest score, but it's still a pretty decent score. So focusing on your weak areas and seeing this exam as a challenge to hone your skills and to learn new things is a better way for you to approach this exam instead of seeing it as an obstacle to you becoming what you want to be. Okay, so study tip number 3 I want to give you guys is when you study, focus on problem solving. When you study, you're going to be reading information and you're going to be doing practice problems. I want you to do more practice problems than reading. If you know nothing about a subject, then you need to focus on reading and you need to make sure that you know the material that's going to be tested on the exam. But if you just keep reading information over and over, keep trying to memorize information over and over, it's not going to benefit you as much than when you answer questions. Why? Because when you answer questions, it requires you to do active thinking. When you're reading information, you're doing more passive thinking. Reading somebody else's word doesn't mean that you understand what's going on. You have to analyze the information and put it into your own words. And then you assess how well you understand the material by going to do questions. And questions is where you find out what you know. So you want to constantly do questions. If you get a lot of questions wrong, then you go back to the material and see what concepts you did not understand. But you want to primarily focus on questions and don't neglect that. That's the most important thing. Study tip number 4 is to have multiple resources. Now, not everybody's in the same situation. Not everybody can afford multiple books multiple study plans and so forth. But there's some free resources out there. There are videos you can watch on YouTube. For you guys, subscribe to my channel. I give out free information, free knowledge, and education for you guys. So there are different platforms and different resources that you can use. And you want to use multiple resources. You definitely want to have multiple perspectives, because that's how you gain knowledge. You become smarter by being able to tackle problems from different approaches. The more perspectives you have, different approaches you're exposed to, the better you become at it. Okay, study tip number 5 for you guys is to use the test-taking strategies in your resources. For most resources that you buy, they'll have test-taking strategies in the book. For example, when I had my PCAT book, a big study tip came from me in the reading comprehension area. That study tip was to not read the entire passage before answering the questions. Before, when I would take standardized tests and do reading comprehension questions, there would be a long passage, and the first thing I would do is I would read the whole passage, and then I would go to the questions, which was terrible because the passages were hard to read, the subject was dry and boring, and I would read the entire passage, but I didn't retain much of the information. And reading the entire passage took up a lot of my time. And when I got to the questions, I was in a hurry to answer the questions because I spent so much time reading the passage. And even after reading the passage, I didn't remember everything that I read. And that would make me have to guess on the answers. And I wouldn't do as well as I did when I took the PCAT. Because when I took the exam, I followed the study tip, which says just read the first 2 and the last 2 lines of each paragraph, and then go to the study question. And that was a great strategy because just reading the first 2 and last 2 lines of each paragraph allowed me to not be overwhelmed by the entire passage. And it also allowed me to at least know what the passage is about without having to read the whole thing. I knew what each paragraph was about. So when I got to the questions, I knew exactly which paragraph to go to find the answer. And that's how I got this high score. So when you have your study resources, they're going to be different study tips. So take advantage of those study tips, and because once you implement them, they're going to do wonders for your score. All right? So hopefully those study tips were helpful for you guys. If you found them helpful, go ahead and leave a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, we welcome you to Intuition, where we focus on math, science, and learning. And we don't memorize, we internalize. All right, so go ahead and do that for us. Help the channel grow, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.